Howdy there, private group members. Hope everybody's doing great as always out there. Wanted to record a little video here, a little different, and I want to talk about my biggest loser stocks ever, in terms of stocks I sold out of, what went wrong with those, and those sorts of things. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because obviously the situation that's happened with the chef, right, where I've just been continually disappointed and just an embarrassingly sad story, right? And so because of that, it has me kind of reminiscing on past failures I've had in the market. And so I want to talk about GoPro. I want to talk about Carnival Cruise Line. I want to talk about Voyager. And then at the end, we'll talk about the chef. And I want to talk about what got me excited about those stocks, why I invested in those. And I think a very important lesson from this whole situation is you can't obviously risk your entire portfolio on a stock, because things will transpire that when you were going into that stock and when you were buying the dip, right, it didn't come around. And if you risk all your capital in one position, obviously you get to see what happens, right? And when it goes right, I mean, if it's a Tesla situation, obviously that's crazy, right? But not every stock's a Tesla, right? And sometimes you're going to have failures. Sometimes you're going to buy a stock that things lined up. And it's like, what happened here? Everything lined up. So let's go through these, okay? So GoPro. First thing to understand about GoPro, when I first started investing in that stock, amazing balance sheet. An amazing balance sheet that company had. They were cash loaded to the sky. And not only were they cash loaded to the sky, but they had, if I remember correctly, no debt at that time. So they had I think they had over $1 billion in cash and investments. They had no debt on the company, and they were extremely profitable, and they were a fairly low PE company. And they were also supposed to get into the drone space because drones were taken off, no pun intended, at that time. And, they were supposed to launch what was called the Karma drone. And that was going to be very, very exciting, right? Plus all their camera lineup. Well, time went on in the investment. And what started to happen was the company started to lose money. What also happened as the investment went along is this Karma drone kept being pushed back. What also happened was lack of innovation at the company, including a big time period where they never launched a new camera. What also happened was they filled the channel, meaning the retailers, out with a ton of cameras, and then they were having a little trouble moving the cameras because I think they thought everything was going to sell better than it did. And next thing you know, Best Buy and all the stores were loaded up on all this inventory, all these GoPro cameras, and so they had trouble selling the cameras, in terms of new orders, because they're trying to sell the old inventory that was in all these stores. And obviously the business just deteriorated, and it became very apparent and clear to me that was no longer a growth story. Instead, I was in a money-losing stock that, in my opinion, had no hope, to be quite frank. And I cashed out of that. I think it was either the end of 2017 or beginning of 2018, if I recall. And very humiliating, obviously, loss in that situation. Okay, so that's what went wrong with that. And Nick Woodman, I don't know what he was doing. I mean, they had the other thing they had social media on lock back in those days. I mean, their YouTube channel was ridiculous. The videos they would put out were super high quality. They would get silly amounts of views. And they were amazing on social media, Instagram, everything. They were just popping, man. And their brand was so exciting. Even if you never cared about buying a GoPro, when you watch the GoPro Hero 4 video, the GoPro Hero 3 video, the GoPro Hero 5 video, you wanted to buy one of those cameras. I don't care if you even knew how to snowboard or knew how to skydive or whatever, right? It was those videos were so epic in those days. If you weren't around in that era, it's hard to even explain to you how insane that was. And unfortunately, it failed. And not the company, obviously, they're still around today. I think the stock price is lower today than it was back when I sold out years and years ago. But, sold for a massive loss, okay? Next up, CCL. What did I see in CCL? I saw a company that was a profit machine, a cash flow machine, a business model that's pretty simple. At the end of the day, it makes sense. It's consistent. Actually, at that time, it was fairly consistent. Huge dividend payer, good management team at the company, And I looked at the company that was, of extremely low PE. I think the PE at that time was less than 12, maybe even potentially less than 10. Very low PE name as well. So it made sense to start buying. And the balance sheet, there was no question, like as long as, like even if there was a regular recession, they had a balance sheet to get them through that. So I started buying, started loading up on shares, more shares. In late 2019 and into early 2020. And then a once in 100-year health event happens. Obviously coronavirus starts, and Carnival Cruise Line's at the forefront of this whole situation. Just the worst timing. The worst timing to buy a cruise line operator is what I fell into there. Couldn't have been worse. Like couldn't have been worse. Like of all times I could have ever bought a cruise line company, I bought it right before. And sometimes that happens in the market, and you're going to have bad luck. That was straight up bad luck. You know what I mean? Like I had to take massive L's on that. Horrible. But at the end of the day, once again, even when I sold out of that stock, I'm pretty sure the Carnival Cruise Lines, it's actually, I think, quite a bit lower today than when I sold out way back in like 2020. So that sucked, man. What did I learn in that situation? Nothing. With Carnival, there's nothing really there was no lesson. It's like, if some freak thing happens, a once in a 100-year event, like that's going to happen. If, nuclear war starts tomorrow and the whole world's ruined, it's like, what does it matter in the end? Like there's no lesson to that. If something so crazy freakish happens, like there's nothing you can do about that. So there was really no lesson there. Voyager. Obviously, Voyager's still the only company I've ever invested in the past 14 years, and hopefully it stays that way, that the company went to zero while I held the shares, right? And yeah, it happened. What can I learn from Voyager situation? I learned crypto is ridiculously dangerous. Crypto, I always knew the risk with that and always spoke, up about that, but I didn't even realize how risky, these companies were. In with Voyager, for them to be loaning out that much money and for it to just go under like that was really like a wake-up call for me. And like, what? The company went to zero like that? Like that was insane, because that's not how things work for like almost any other company out there. There's a process that goes through where, like, for months, quarters, sometimes even years, you can see that company getting closer and closer to bankruptcy, but they're like clinging on, trying to stay alive. The Voyager situation, that company went from massive growth, so exciting, to bankrupt overnight. It was crazy, man. And so I guess the thing I learned from that is just, crypto's it's a wild west of just crapshoot, man. And I should have never even messed with that stock, to be quite frank. But at the end of the day, I saw the growth was ridiculous in Voyager. They had a great balance sheet at that time. Like, you look at Voyager's balance sheet when I was getting that stock, there was no concerns about bankruptcy or anything like that. But little did I know they were loaning out money to some crap hedge fund or whatever, and they had all their money leveraged in some Terra Luna BS, and next thing you know, the company goes under. So if anything, looking back on that, I should have just stayed away from crypto. With the chef, obviously in this situation, everything's out there as far as on YouTube and whatnot, on what I got excited about, the growth for the company, the growth for the brand, obviously the plant-based food movement, which obviously took a huge step back in 2022 for whatever reason. That is what it is. I don't think that's likely a lasting reason, but it is what happened, right? And when it came to the chef, it's just a massive growth, an epic brand just building out so fast, and everything played out, so far in that story exactly how I thought it was going to be in terms of getting into retailers and expansion, all those things. But the obviously the component that hasn't come together, and I hope it comes together. I really do. Is obviously the financial side, the margins, and just everything, just the disaster on the financial front, right? And even the balance sheet's now in a very weak place. When I first started buying into the chef, the balance sheet was amazing. Amazing. They had cash loads so big you couldn't, it might touch a 747 up there or something, man. when I was getting in that stock and building out that position, especially in late 2021, like look at their balance sheet back then. It was incredible how much money they had, and now to see them in a weakened balance sheet position, it's just adds insult to injury in this whole situation. To be like, geez, you guys blew through that much money, and in that whole situation, I mean, I think the lesson learned with the chef is at the end of the day, if it's an unprofitable company, you can't bet big on it. The sin I made with the chef is I bought extremely heavy in unprofitable company, likely to compensate for the fact that I didn't go heavy enough in Tesla when they were an unprofitable company. And therefore, I'm down over $1 million on the chef. Over $1 million. And that sucks. Maybe overconfidence, like what leads to that? Maybe overconfidence from Tesla leads to, not only buying into an unprofitable company. And the thing with the chef is, I looked at them and I'm like, yeah, they're unprofitable, but it's a food company. Like they'll get to profitability, fairly soon, right? And, obviously it's just the furthest thing from that as of right now. We'll see what happens here in the future, but as of right now, that's where things stand. So if there's one takeaway from me moving forward is if I'm going to bet on a company that is losing money, bet small. I bet way too big on a company that was losing money, and now I'm paying for that massively with a 7-figure mistake. 7 figures. So yeah, I think moving forward, if I'm going to buy an unprofitable company, I got to bet small. And that's what I did with Tesla. Tesla, back when I was buying that, I don't even know if Tesla was a top 5 position. If it was maybe the 4th or the 5th biggest, back in those days. Obviously, the only reason Tesla became such a big, huge position in the public account, for instance, is because it went up so much. It wasn't like I put in some insane amount. And, obviously, I should have been buying way heavier, but at the end of the day, it was a money loser. So I understood that risk going in. And I said, okay, it's a money losing company. I do believe in it. I do believe in its brand. I believe everything they're going to do. I believe they're going to become incredibly profitable, ... right? And everything I ever wanted for that company, they became that and more. But I was smart going into that one because I bet on the smaller side. And the chef, probably just too cocky, probably just too confident, probably just too big of a head, and I bet way too big. The chef should be a stock I'm down $50,000 on, $75,000 on, not over $1 million. And so that's the lesson I learned from that I'll take kind of moving forward in this game. And that's the game of stock market investing, man. You learn things. Once you think you got it all down, something hits you that you never saw coming, and like, what did I do? Like, why did I do this? Like, are you kidding me? Like, So anyways, guys, sometimes I like to record one of these just random videos because I feel like they're needed out there, and I love to kind of take everybody through my process of my ups and my downs and the learning aspects, because you might not be down, let's hope you're not down over $1 million on the chef like I am, but there's things you can learn from this situation. I'll be like, because there's going to be situations that come in your investing journey that are going to trip you up, and there's going to be a situation in your future where you're very confident in a company, and you're going to have to make a decision on how heavily you invest in that company. And I think by seeing something like this play out, you kind of be like, okay, I remember when Jeremy ... and then he went down $1 million on that stock, right? And, that's what it's all about, man. So anyways, appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining me as always. Much love, and peace.